Planning Commission to order. And I would like to, are we all good, Patrick? Yep, thanks. We're all good?
We're live, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I guess first off, we'll just, I see that all of our commissioners are here. And I will just call the roll here really quickly, show that Councillor Swearingen is here, and as well as Hawkins and Peters. We're all here today. Great. And are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Anybody? Nope, no changes. All right, then I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make the motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay. Commissioner Hawkins has put that out there. Any second for that?
I'll second.
All right, Ms. Peters. Excellent. And then we have to approve minutes. We had several sections of minutes there. And as I was going through the minutes, I don't have any notes of this myself, and maybe there is a section of minutes that we are missing, but I swear we said something nice about Tim or something like that, and that wasn't into the record. So if that was not into the record, then I would do that today, as well as Hal. If there's no record of that from last year, then I would do that this year, if that's okay by everyone. All right.
I'm sure we can go back. I know that did happen, Michael.
I thought so too.
Our minutes are usually pretty sparse on these meetings, but we can go back and put something in to reflect that those statements were made.
Okay. All right. Great. With that addition or change, or however that turns out, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as they are. With that,
do we only need to approve the minutes for the March meeting since the others were previous? I felt like they were an update.
They actually haven't been approved yet. This is, this board's not been fully formed until recently, so those are just kind of sitting out there.
All right, I will motion to approve. I believe it was 3 months worth of minutes then.
Yeah. Okay, I have that moved. Any seconds?
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you. So we have a second, and so we will move on. We've adopted the agenda, our minutes. So now
you're gonna have to, Michael, can I?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to ask him to vote at this one.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my mistake. Yes. So I will. We'll vote on that. Kelly?
Aye.
And Ben?
Aye.
And there we go, Miss Skizzle.
Aye.
All right. And I am also aye. So we have so when we, just for my own clarification, so approving minutes also is voted on as well as the agenda?
Well, I think technically every time you're doing a motion, you should vote on it. But with the agenda, it's not terribly important that an official action was taken. With the minutes, it is.
Yes, got it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Roth. All right, so we're moving on to our variants, and I see that, Katie is here. Hello, Katie. I'm assuming that all the commissioners here have had an opportunity to look over the request. I did talk to Katie. I was out at their place and walked around a little bit. So I have a fair idea of what I'm thinking in this regard, and I'm wondering if anybody else has thoughts and would like to go first.
I'd like to go first.
Oh, Mr. Roth, I knew you would.
Great. This is a public hearing. It's the first one you're all having as a group, but the purpose of this meeting is that we provide the public, and in particular the neighbors, with an opportunity to comment. And we have received some comments, 2 of which were included in the packet and 2 of which were received afterwards. So I think maybe since we're doing this meeting electronically, it'd be best if we just go ahead and read all of those comments.
Okay, we should just read them.
Patrick's gonna do that.
Okay.
All right. This first comment is from
Rebecca and Lauren Stoner. Let's see here. Dear Planning Commission, thanks for the notice of public hearing for Katie Usom's property at 110 2nd Avenue East near us, and thanks for allowing us to use alternate methods for our comment. We do not have any objections to this request for a variance for making improvements to existing buildings on her property. We look forward to see what comes of the improvements. Next comment is from Thomas and Jody Uhasi, 214 East 2nd Street. Public hearing. Okay. We congratulate the new owners of the property at 110 2nd Avenue East and their interest in wanting to do improvements to the historical fish house and the 2-story garage carriage house. We appreciate the opportunity to comment on the request for a variance on this property directly in front of our home. Per our discussion with Hayden at the city office, we were told the current work proposed by the new owner, Katie Usom, involves improvement to the foundation of the historical fish house and some painting and plumbing, electrical work in the carriage house, which is what we understand to be the garage barn near our adjoining property line. We have no objection to these proposed projects. All right, the next message is from Duncan, Evelyn, and Deborah McDonald. Good evening, all. We are writing in regard to the hearing scheduled for Wednesday, April 7th at 4 p.m. for the variance of the fish house at 110 2nd Avenue East, Grand Marais, Minnesota. While we have great respect for the property owners to be able to do whatever they wish to their property, we have concerns. This Usom is requesting a variance for a long-standing fish house used for historic commercial fishing endeavors on the shore of Lake Superior to be converted to a sauna spa business, and that the existing 40-foot setback required be exempted. Oh my, there are reasons for the existing setbacks and codes. I'm sure there are many of you who remember the horrible day that the waves of Lake Superior crashed into the East Bay Hotel dining room. I can't imagine the owners of the Dream Superior sauna wanting patrons in the sauna to succumb to the same experience so close to the Superior shore. These old-time fishing houses are not designed for current vacation uses. If you grant the exemption, it will be on you if a calamity occurs. At the very least, it seems prudent for the deck to be removed and transported to the 2nd Avenue street side of the building as opposed to the lake side. On another note, we were shocked to see the aerial view of the area. It seemed that the barn carriage house was built right on the property line, both the Uhasi property as well as our McDonald property. We hope that the barn does not encroach on either adjacent properties and hope that the county or new homeowners can provide documentation to the contrary. In addition, the variance indicated that the fish house will be painted red with white trim, but does not specify colors of the barn carriage house. We hope the new owners will be sensitive to the surrounding neighbors and consider more subdued color that fades into the natural landscape. Respectfully submitted, Duncan, Evelyn, and Deborah McDonald, property owners of 213 East 2nd Street. And then the final comment is from Rob Svedlanka at North Shore Federal Credit Union. To whom it may concern, I'm writing on behalf of the North Shore Federal Credit Union with regards to the use and variance. North Shore Federal Credit Union does not have any objections or concerns with the setback variance for the existing structure. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. Sincerely, Rob Svedlanka.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Getting that into the record. Awesome. Now, did all the commissioners here, did you all get a chance to see any of those? Did you get those emailed to you, those comments? Okay. Did you, Stacy?
Yes, I did. How many notifications went out?
Mr. Roth?
I'm not entirely sure. Hayden would know. I can go grab the file and count if you'd like me to.
Well, I'm just wondering how wide an area we
We
notify.
do within 350 feet of the property is what we mail to, and then we also publish it in the newspaper.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Roth. So having been out there and looked at it, as I said, you know, I'm interested in hearing what other commissioners think of this this ask here. Kelly?
I guess I will speak to it a little bit. Both Michael and Mike would know that.
Just a moment, Kelly. Katie, your microphone is causing some feedback. I'm going to mute you, but whenever you want to talk, just unmute yourself.
So as Michael and Mike Roth know, I am on the North Shore Management Board as a city councilor and have only attended one meeting because typically those meetings occur on the same nights as our city council meetings. One of the things that I am remotely aware of is the North Shore Management Board is undertaking a project at looking at coastal erosion that's occurring here in Minnesota, basically on the North Shore. The South Shore belongs to Wisconsin. It is in preliminary, what I would say maybe preliminary stages, but I looked this morning briefly because I don't have a lot of information, but if you go to the ARDC website, so it's ardc.org/CEHM, that stands for Coastal Erosion Hazard Mapping. There is a plethora of information there, agendas, notes. There was a presentation by someone regarding other states and what they're doing, all the way out to New York, because obviously Lake Erie. So they talked about Ohio, New York, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, because it touches Lake Michigan, Indiana. And this is becoming a large subject. I don't feel that I have enough information here to really clue everybody in, because again, I'm only aware of it from the one meeting I attended, because this is what they were talking about as to how do we want to move forward with it. I do have some concerns about this. I think my feelings are the building is there and I would allow it to remain there based upon, like a grandfathered in clause. However, being the proximity of it is within that 40 feet, the shoreline is basically beach rock there with boulders. There are boulders there that cover the small side hill, maybe the incline into the yard. And there's some tree line there, but it's not large tree line. And I have some real concerns about making this a permanent secured structure, being that it is within the 40 feet and it's actually probably even obviously closer than that. I don't begrudge the idea of what they're doing and expanding a business, but based upon the location of it and what's going on around there with the lake, I guess I have some concerns, and we can definitely talk about this. My thought is I'm not very much in favor of it, but maybe as we talk through it, there's things that I'm missing out on. As far as what color somebody paints a building, that's not for me to say in that area. I don't want to touch upon that. I know the neighbors, there are spaces there within their property for parking. I looked at all that. I don't have concerns that way, but I think this, even though it's a small structure and with what's happening in coastal erosion, last year Lake Superior had its highest lake levels that it has seen in many, many, many years. 20 years ago, they were having the lowest lake levels we'd ever seen, and people thought it would never come back. Yet it did, and we hit the highest lake levels. So, that's a little bit of what I know from the management board's perspective of what's going on. If people want to dig in to the ARDC website that I mentioned and take a look for more information, I'm going to try to continue to expand my knowledge on it. But again, it's really hard when our council meetings happen the same nights, and they planned it that way in April. So I know we have a lot on our agenda in April, so I won't be able to make their meeting, but just thoughts that I wanted to share with the rest of you.
Thanks.
I have a quick comment to piggyback maybe off of what, is that okay if I just interject? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I wasn't sure if I was muted. Kelly, there is actually a concrete break wall on that property that's been installed, and it was in good condition. I went down there today because I'd never seen this property before, but there is actually a concrete break wall, as just for reference. I think I'm sure this isn't the first time that this Planning and Zoning Commission has come across such a variance request, and I'm wondering if there's a precedent that's been set with other like properties. That's a question maybe for Mike Roth. The second question I have is, we see a lot of this historical context, and I'm wondering what constitutes historical, and is there any consequence to that in the reference to the fish house? And maybe we could start by answering those or identifying those questions, and then I've got more to say on it. But
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, we have seen, and obviously, Mike, you should jump in, but we have seen other interesting properties throughout Grand Marais, as I'm sure you're well aware. We have many opportunities to make judgments because things were just built the way they were built. And when they change hands, people have new ideas of how they want their city to look and things they want to do. So we've come across this before, but as to the historical nature of the fish house, I'm not certain. Mike, do you have any word on that?
I don't have any idea when that structure was built. My suspicion is it was well before there was a zoning ordinance, which means there was no setback at the time, which affords it a lot of rights to continue in its legal nonconforming state. And to your question, Ben, about other shoreline setback variances, we have seen a number of them. A lot of them have occurred inside of the harbor and inside of our interior break wall. So like the North House property, the Angry Trout property down there, there's been a number of shoreline vegetation line setback variances granted. And a lot of times the conversation about that is that one of the things that makes that space different is that it's inside the harbor and it's behind another break wall. So there's those extra protections. So that conversation about, what the lake might do to the property is definitely relevant. We've had other conversations about setbacks, vegetation line setbacks on the East Bay. And I believe we've granted some there too. The vegetation line, well, if you think about Sydney's, for instance, there's lake action all the way up to those buildings on windy days when the lake is this high. So even if you could establish a vegetation line at some point on the beach, I doubt it would ever be 40 feet away. So even those buildings are closer than the setback, and we've had conversations about that. I'm not sure that we've ever said no to one where there was just clearly a problem with it. But most of the time, there's some sort of protective structure that's included in the conversation, like a break wall on the beach or a break wall in the harbor or something that helps us think about it. I guess I'd have to say, though, if this is a historic fish house, it's made it this far. So must be something right about the setup.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I guess. So Ben, did you have more that you wanted to chime in on that?
No, so from my understanding, then what we're really talking about is we're not talking about adding additional structures. We're just improving and solidifying the foundation of the existing fish house as it sits right now. The only thing I would add is that I do think that the project in general does meet a lot of our community vision planning standards with regards to supporting small business, which I think is a priority. And I think that when you talk about the history of the property, its capacity to generate income, and providing a permanent foundation for that that's safe is something that we should be supporting. So the letters that were, if I can touch on the letters, maybe 3 letters in support, 1 not so much in support. I think Uhasi's probably stand the most to be affected by any change to that property, both in aesthetics, because it's literally directly related to their view of the lake, but also any increased traffic they're going to have to witness. So for them to be in support of it, I felt a little bit better about it. And there was another question in McDonald's about setbacks in general on that property and whether or not there was an encroachment. It wasn't clear from the photos, but I imagine in the downtown waterfront zone that there are probably not a great amount of setback from property lines other than waterfront. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, there are no setbacks other than the lakeshore setback.
And do you believe that in this area in question that all the buildings are on the property that they should be?
Are you asking me that question, Ben?
I am. I'm asking anybody
thanks.
with a knowledge of this area.
I don't have any reason to
plat.
suspect that
Okay.
anybody's buildings are not on their property. When I look at the aerial photos that I have access to, I don't see an encroachment. But both of those statements are different than I know for a fact that everybody's
Sure.
buildings are where they think they are.
It just to whatever capacity we can settle that for McDonald's. I think that we owe it to them to have that looked at.
Well, I do know that those, and maybe they've improved in the recent years, but in the past, those aerials have not necessarily been 100% on. So if some building is looking a little bit over, a little bit whatever, it's like, well, yeah. But really, I mean, unless they actually have a problem, which would be different, I mean, to say offhandedly, like, oh, we have this thing that we're kind of also concerned about. If they want to come on and say like, hey, or that it's the city's job to figure this out, I'm not sure that it's actually our job to figure that out. But they can certainly talk to their neighbors, and I bet they could figure it out where that line is.
And there may be dependent upon when people bought houses, a lot of times surveys are done too, to see where property lines are, different things. So they may have that historically, but yes, I don't believe that's the city's responsibility to have property surveyed for people themselves. If they want to figure it out, that's up to them to hire someone. Just a side note, as we were talking, I love internet. I looked on the Cook County website, and it shows that the house was built in 1910, the carriage house built in 1983. So whether that existing fish house was built somewhere the same time as the house was or after, it lists the building, but obviously doesn't list the year. And I don't know, I can't remember as a kid, and I don't know that Stacy does, seeing that's kind of tucked away. So, but that's a couple of the dates out on the Cook County website for the property itself.
Yeah. And since Katie is here, I just wanted to ask her, I did see the surveyor out there when we were there the other day, or when I was there the other day. So Katie, could you chime in and say, did you get those lines figured out, or did they get back to you on that?
We have hired Charlie Troval to do a survey of the property. And yes, like when you were there, he was doing the initial corner finding. He does not yet have anything marked, but that's something that we've paid for and will be respectful of our neighbor's property. This is my husband, Sam, by the way. He is also part owner of the property, and we're grateful for the chance to be here. We did want to mention that there is an original survey pin on the property on the side in question, and it is several feet beyond where both the tree line and the barn is. So, of course, the new survey can confirm that, but we are pretty confident that there's no issue there. And Mike Raymond, who was our realtor for this transaction, he was actually on both sides of the transaction. He walked the property with us and with Sharon, the previous owner, and was confident that there's no encroachment to be concerned about.
All right, thanks for that, Katie. All right. So Commissioner Hawkins, do you have anything?
Yeah, thank you. I, like Kelly, I did go to the ARDC North Shore Management Plan website, tried to get some information. I do have concerns that this property is so close to the lake. I mean, it looks like 7 feet, and I'm worried about erosion issues, especially considering this parcel will be used, 20, 30 people a day as part of the business plan. Yet using that and going to the lake, and I worry about further erosion of the lake because of just usage. People having saunas, of course, they're going to want to jump in a lake. They're going to go to the lake. That's just natural. Have we reached out in any way to get maybe guidance from our local soil and water board? What maybe can be done to prevent that?
We're actually working on a project with soil and water, literally in the front yard of this house right now. So what an opportunity we have to just have them take a little jaunt down the beach and see if they've got any helpful advice for the new property owners about things. And they've actually done a number of projects with property owners in the county, but in the city in particular, to help with funding for and design work to install erosion control structures where they're needed. So if there is an issue, we've got great connections there that we can help you with.
Oh, I kind of would like to know if it's even possible, I guess, or what the options are before I agree one way or the other. I can't approve something that if I don't know if it's going to work, I guess. You understand my dilemma here? I'm wondering.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. We want to be sure that these structures going forward are safe, because our city is going to still be here after we're all gone. So we want to make sure that things are in the best shape that they can be. Just to chime in on what you were saying, Stace, I guess my concern is, along with everybody else, the proximity to the lake, the possibility for erosion, and also wondering if putting that pad, the pad seems like a good idea, right? Of course, putting in the cement, but then that also has an impact on the erosion. So that's kind of where I'm coming down to, of thinking like, is this a good idea?
Yeah, it's the construction of the pad going to create more issues. Yeah, I know.
But then, Stace, the thing I would also put out there is that I'm not sure where our purview lies in that regard. Like, I'm wondering, I can see in our North Shore Management Plan, that we have some statements that we make, but we're kind of caught when the structure is already there and they're making an improvement on a structure that already exists. They're not asking to make a new structure. Putting in the cement makes me wonder, is it a new structure, A? And B, can that area handle that? without causing more erosion. Like I'm not that kind of person. I don't know that kind of a thing. And I don't have any guidance within, any of the regulations that we have to let me know how that might roll. So I don't know. I mean, because baseline, I am for this project. I think it's a great idea. I think it would be awesome. I'm very excited about it. And that is obviously an unused, untapped corner of our downtown. And I feel like that's where I'm like absolutely full on for it. And, when I look at our findings of fact, it's like pretty much all of those we could just nail off right off the top. I mean, it all makes sense. What they want to do, where they want to do it, and how they want to do it all makes sense. The only thing that's holding this up is to know whether or not the erosion is an issue or not. And I'm thinking, or Kelly, did you have something to say?
I'm just thinking, and I don't know if it works. I'm wondering, I know Stacy touched a little bit, but it's not that we have to know their business plan, but I'm sure Katie and Sam would be happy. Is the thought to have the sauna there and people would naturally walk down and go on the lake? Because it doesn't seem like there's a clear, simple path to get to the lakeway. The erosion, along with Lake Superior, which the management board is talking about, I'm not worried about where people walk as much as I'm thinking about, you're right, the pouring of the cement, what happens there, what happens even for their property, I guess, in a way, I think about a property owner too. So maybe Katie and Sam could talk a little bit about what the thought is.
Sure thing. Thanks, Kelly. Something to note, our strong preference is that guests will enter our property from 2nd Avenue. So that's where our signage will be. We will welcome them into the carriage house or the garage. That's where the lobby and the locker rooms will be. So we'll direct people who come in, check in if they want to change, take a shower, have a cup of coffee or tea, and then they will walk through the yard to get to the red shed. So we really hope that people don't come up from the beach. There's already plenty of people out on the beach in front of all of the hotels and in front of our house. But because people need to sign up in advance to go through the sauna experience, we will have a very well-marked path that we'd like people to take, and we'll do our best to enforce that. So there's an entrance that faces 2nd Avenue where people will come in, and then the bathrooms and changing areas will lead people out through an exit that actually faces the lake and faces the red shed. So our hope is very much to keep people in that path, and the views of the lake will be spectacular. But that will be enjoyed from inside of the red shed, inside of the fish shed that we're converting into the sauna, and not hopefully a direct spill out onto the lakefront.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, and what really got us excited about the property, and especially when we went there with our contractor Randy, is that it is behind that break wall, right? Had it been in another spot on our property that didn't look like it's already had a break wall there and has the roots in all that places, I don't know if we would kind of consider it in this way. So we definitely have, I think, considered that and looked through it and had multiple people. So it's definitely something that's been on our minds as we try to address it.
Now,
Is there an opportunity to move? Well, and maybe this is a problem in itself, but moving that fish house to the north 15, 20 feet, is that now you are talking about a new structure, I suppose.
To us, that would be a brand new structure, and it would also be on the side of the property that we will be living in with our kids. So current location behind the break wall really is we think the best and highest use of the land and the property, and best service to the community, those that live here and want to spend time in the sauna, and visitors who may be staying at a hotel or a vacation rental and are looking for something new to do that they haven't had a chance to experience in Marais.
The only other thing I'd add to that is we just love this property and love Grand Marais in general. And like all of you, I'm sure, love standing out at Artist Point and looking back at East Bay. And so one of the reasons we love the ability to keep the fish shed, right, is to maintain the look and feel that's already there, right? And as you said, Michael, that we really just want to make it safe. That is the goal, is to make it safe, right? And as well to, again, keep that look and feel that the shore has. And so that's what got us really excited about it, Ben, as we looked at it, right? Again, okay, it seems it's in that safe spot. Others have looked at it, but doing it there and the business in this way, really we've looked at it and said, yeah, how can we do it to make sure that it fits in with the city plan and that view overall?
Sure.
So I think what Ben was asking, and Mike can probably help me out a little bit. If that structure, because it's a building and it's only sitting on cinder blocks, if it moved to the north, which means if it moved towards the carriage house, 10 feet, would it really be considered a new structure if it's a building that's already on the property?
It's actually, the question is structural alteration. That's when the land use permit is required. And that's why we're talking about this at all, because we're considering the fact that they're adding that slab, a structural alteration to the building. I mean, if we didn't think that that was a structural alteration, they wouldn't need to ask us for any special permission to do this. I don't think it's a different question at all from our perspective. Obviously it is from theirs, to ask if the building was moved to 10 or 15 feet. It's really the same considerations that you would have. They would require a variance to place a building within the shoreline setback area, and you have the ability to either say yes or no to that.
Thanks, Mike. Got it. Any other thoughts from folks? So I'm getting a sense that from the group that we kind of like the idea, but we're a little apprehensive about the erosion. That may possibly be an issue. So since you guys are here, I'm wondering, Katie and Sam, since you're here, have you had any a certified smart guy come out and say like, yes, this will not fall away when you put on that cement? Have you had anything like that?
We have had Blomquist Construction and Randy Snowbridge out to the property multiple times, and they feel that it's the sound way to go. Having the break wall there, being further set back. I understand that there is an erosion consideration. I would think, compared to other areas that have been mentioned, Sydney's and the North House, where there really isn't any barrier, that we having that seawall, having that vegetation setback is actually probably another 10 feet between the seawall and the fish shed itself. So we feel like we've kind of gone to the appropriate parties and have been we've tried to be very conscientious about going through the appropriate channels and making sure that we're doing things by the book. So we have a lot of respect for the work that goes into managing the city. We are very much hoping to get started. We have, them lined up and are looking for that green light so that we can hit the busy season, just like every other business in town is concerned with. So we're very much asking for and hoping that we receive your support today, and appreciate your consideration.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Ben and Michael,
Go ahead.
you've both seen the break wall itself. Is that right? How far along that property along the lakeshore does it run, and approximately how high is it?
I feel like it falls short, of the fish house. Now, I can't say that with any degree of certainty, but I just went out there very quickly, just to put my hands on it. I feel like it maybe could be extended another 25 feet, 30 feet, and provide more coverage. As far as height, I mean, it's above the water line, right? It's probably, I think it's adequate. I feel comfortable with the proposal. It would be nice if they had to continue that break wall through the entire property, but
So you're
I'm
saying
looking at some aerials of it right now, Kelly, and if I can give it a try to bring them up on this computer and share them with you if you want to look at it.
okay.
It
Ben,
might
you're
take a
saying
minute or
that-
two.
Yeah, that's fine. Ben, you're saying the break wall ran in front of the house, but you think it falls short of getting all the way over to this house?
for some reason that's sticking in my mind, Kelly. I can run down there again right now. It's literally I can see their
I know.
house
I know how close you are.
from my home. I
Katie
could
and
run
Sam,
down there
do
with
you happen to
I
know
could
how
go down there
far-
with the camera right now.
So I'm gonna pull pictures up right now, but the entire fish shed falls within the seawall.
Okay.
Yeah, so it extends past both sides. I'm confident of that, but I'm also pulling up pictures right now so that we can share with the group.
And where it does end is where there's that massive pile of boulders. So that is kind of a continuation of the seawall. I can't imagine the expense to try to move those to put in an extension at that point. That also would bring it closer to the McDonald's property, which I'm guessing they would not be in favor of. But we'll see what we can find here real quick on pictures as well.
Okay.
Can everybody see this?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, it does. Okay.
So the break wall, I hope this doesn't scare people how much we know about them now, is about 5 or 6 feet tall right there. It's a good eye bend. There's about 25 feet more of property that could be covered by it. And you can see very clearly that this section and this section, west and east of it, are placed riprap. So somebody's thought about erosion control here in the past.
Mhm.
Is there anything people want to look at a little closer while I've got this up?
I'm good. That's awesome, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Katie and Sam, do you plan to keep that? Is that the only door in? Is that where that decking will continue to stay then?
We'd actually prefer to take the deck away. That's on the front and have the entrance from the backside so that it's a straight shot right out from the lobby and reception and into the to the fish shed. So we'd like to remove the stairs that are on that side and we'd like to remove the deck.
Okay. Are there stairs? There's nothing going down to the lake though, right?
No, there's no formal trail going down to the lake.
Okay. Thank you. I'm good.
Do you plan on putting stairs to the lake?
I think we need a variance from the city of some kind to do that. So right now we're focused on this one. I think as many of you have probably been on that beach along the hotels. If someone wants to get down there, it's very easy to do so. There's places, and we're curious to see with the rain garden that's going in between our property and the Best Western, does that encourage people to not kind of walk in that space, or does it invite them to do more of that? But I think, are we going to formally put anything in right now? We have no plans of doing that.
All right. So how are you feeling about it with that information, Kelly?
With that information and with seeing the wall, I actually would make a motion that we approve the variance.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Any other conversation?
In the past, we've had the board weigh in with some of the findings.
Yeah.
I always appreciate the help. I'm
Okay.
happy to try and write them without your input, but I think it's better when I get your input. So we
Yeah.
just gotta look at the actual application. The findings that we need to consider are on the application form, and they're also in the cover memo that I submitted.
Okay. So going to the findings, looking at, is this variance in harmony with the purpose and intent of our ordinance? And it does seem like it's so. It is in the downtown district. We are asking for people to have retail there more than having single homes. So that seems to be consistent there. And is it consistent with our comprehensive plan? And yes, it falls in line with that. The next is to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the ordinance. And I think it is permitted, is it not, Mr. Ross?
Well, what's not permitted is how close it is to the lake shore. But in this case, and what we would often use for a finding like this is it's already there.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's reasonable that it's not any closer than it already was.
Right. And so in this case, the next three, so the plight of the landowner, it's obviously not their fault because it was there when they bought the place. And then if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. And as has been shown to us, they're planning on keeping the structures in as they are and just redoing the I guess not the footings, but putting in a cement slab, which I also saw in there said cement slab, which I was curious about, but it was corrected later. So anyway, that's all good. So it appears that in my mind that it falls under all of those. And Stacy, did you have something to add or to say?
Well, yeah, I'm back and forth on this one. I'm all about promoting business, but as far as the fish house and continued use of it 7 feet away from the vegetation line, I do have concerns about that. And the fish house was meant to store your boat. This is not the same use, and there's more traffic. If you wanted to restore that and store your boat there, would I have a problem? No. I guess it's just I'm concerned about the traffic and erosion, and unfortunately, I don't have enough experience on this yet of what the North Shore Management Board. I was really counting on Kelly to, and I did not call Dave to say, hey, what's going on at the county level with this? So, I just don't know that I have enough information yet to make sure that I'm thinking of all the issues. So that's what I'm still struggling.
So we've had a motion, it's been seconded. So at this moment, maybe we need a little more discussion. Is that kosher? Can we do that, Mike?
Can I make a comment? No, there's no other reason that they couldn't be using this truck. I mean, it's unsafe the way it is. I think we can all agree on that. But if they didn't come in for the variance and didn't want to do the concrete, they could open up a sauna just the way it is there now, and nobody could say anything, right? They're making this safer, and I think that's really something we should consider and support.
Thanks for that, Ben. One thing I was going to add is that it does get to what we want to happen in our downtown district. We do want to see retail happening there. And I get what you're saying about traffic, although I think that little corner, that'll be fine. I mean, they're not talking huge numbers coming through there. And they do have, as you've probably seen, they've got plenty of parking to get in there. And the kind of traffic going from the shed or whatever to the fish house, I'm not sure that I see that the traffic as an issue. Now I hear what you're saying about erosion and wanting that to be secure. The only thing I saw in our North Shore Management Plan was that if it's a new structure, there can be other requirements put in place, but I'm not sure that this falls under that. I don't think and Mike's shaking his head. So yeah, that doesn't fall under that. So I don't know that we should really stand in the way of it. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I also feel like people go into business, they build things, and if the wave comes and smashes it through, well, they learned something. And that's not, it's, you know, that's part of life. It's a risk. And I feel like what they're saying they want to do falls in line with what we're asking them to do. So I'm inclined to say yes, but I always like it when we can all be together. So I'm going to hold out here for a little bit more. Miss, you have anything more to say?
Hey, there's nothing that says you have to be together on this. It's a great goal, but at some point you have to just vote. And Stacey, this isn't meant in any way to try and convince you, but I'm sure the property owners would be interested in this too. We're literally doing this project with Soil and Water right next to their property this summer. I can't see any reason why we wouldn't make that connection and just have the Soil and Water folks take a little peek around the corner and see if they have any ideas. So, I mean, it can't address what your concern is tonight. We can't offer any more information about it tonight, but regardless of what happens, we'll certainly put those people together and make that connection.
And just to be fair, if there are people watching this, to Katie and to Sam, that 7-foot setback is actually the decking. If you look at in the drawing, if you remove the decking, the far southeast corner then is 10 feet off. The front corner, I believe, was, I closed it out. Dumb me. The front corner, I think, was over 19 feet or more. I think it might have even been 27 is in my brain. So I know that 7 feet and 10 feet isn't a lot, but if they're removing the decking, you know, and then I look down to that, obviously, I think Katie and Sam are probably looking into insurance costs for this. It's their property. If there's issues, Lake Superior rears its ugly head and the part of the building disappears, obviously that's your issue. I would share on a side note that's totally separate because I work at the hospital. You know, you may want to encourage people to not be down on the rocks that are your visitors there and paying for an experience, because if something happens, that comes back to you. And I can think of a Christmas about 4 years ago, and Bluefin Bay had an experience. So Mother Nature and that lake are very unforgiving when they want to be. But that does not affect what we're doing here today. So just thoughts as we move forward. But that's about all. I think I've pretty much covered what I wanted to.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Is there any more discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will call the roll. Kelly?
Aye.
And going to Mr. Peters?
Aye.
And then going to Stacy?
Aye.
Thank you. And I'm aye as well. Motion passes. I'll send that on. Thank you so much for showing up today, you guys. Good luck. Be safe. Put up a rail.
We look forward to meeting more of you in person. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the community.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right. So moving on, no new business. So we're on to old business. I'm hoping that everybody had a chance to go over the work plan and see if there were areas that you thought we should get into. Stacy, I was interested to see what you were thinking, particularly just because as I was rolling through it and going over the different recommendations, I kind of feel like we've hit a few of these, and maybe I'm wrong, Mr. Roth, but it seemed like we've kind of done a number of these in our last go round. But Stacy, if there's any in there that really popped out to you, like would be a nice thing to add on to what we've already done to really sort of hammer things down. Did anything come up for you?
Through that list, the utilities, update the city utility maps and all that. I think that's kind of important, especially we're talking housing issues, county, city, school, you know, group doing that, and an infrastructure plan being talked about. really think we need to make sure that if we want to, or I think we might need to do updates to our public utilities areas, that we have a plan that is ready to go, saying this is what we want, this is what we need. So that's an area I'd like to focus on.
You're muted, sir.
Number 7 on the list then, Stace? Yep. Okay. All right. Mr. Peters, was there anything that struck you as a good one to go for?
No, I wasn't absolutely clear on some of the language, and so I'm going to sort of stumble through it and maybe I'll pick up on some of the stuff when you guys talk more about it.
Okay.
I know there's city property and city land to the west side of town. I know that it's wet. I know that nobody wants to put roads in there. But there's a lot of private property out that way that could be used for housing. So, what are the barriers? What are the costs? What's the payback? I was surprised to hear, something I picked up on last meeting was you guys worked a lot on the ordinances, and that was awesome work. And there's no question there. And I think there was some deflation in the room when I think Mike said, well, we might not know the impact for 20 years. I'd like to see a little quicker payback than 20 years. And I think everybody probably feels that way. So what's the best bang for your buck?
Okay. Thanks for
Hey,
that.
on that note, we got our first accessory dwelling unit application between last meeting and this one. We've also had, I'd say, a half a dozen other serious conversations with folks about new housing units. I mean, none of those are permits yet, but I think we'll see quite a few more this year.
Great.
Awesome. Good to hear. All right. Councilor Swearingen, anything from you that you saw on the list?
7, 8, and 9 probably interested me somewhat more than a lot of things. I think it was number 4 is where I kind of have the least amount of interest. Manufactured homes I know that definitions, we went through this obviously when we did the new ordinances, mobile homes, manufactured homes. I'm not quite so excited that I would want to see a mobile home park within the city limits. But I am interested, if there are ways to have, I will say, townhomes or smaller apartment buildings. We talked about row houses don't fit necessarily right within the current neighborhoods that we have, but are there other areas where things like that might be appropriate, within city limits? So that's why 7, 8, and 9 kind of speak to me a little bit more than most of the other things.
Okay, great.
Just a quick clarification. We think that 1 through 5 have been addressed. And so they were included in the original report, and 1, 3, and 5 were the ones that were selected to work on. But we think the ordinance actually addressed 1 through 5.
Yeah. So one of the things I was looking at in this was thinking about, I agree with the updating utilities. I guess we've all agreed on that one, at least, as being something that we would like to see happen. Really looking at future expansion. And now I can't remember which one that was. That was the question I had for you, Mr. Roth. Number 9, I kind of felt like didn't we not address this? I mean, when we decided to, allow for the different housing types in the R1, et cetera, did we not address number 9, or we did not?
I think there's probably differences of opinions about that. I know that there was a lot of conversation about this issue while you were developing the housing ordinance. And I know that the decision that was made was not to create separate areas of the city where we would focus multifamily housing. And that a lot of that was a reflection of with the R2 zone that was created for that very purpose was an absolute failure, that it didn't actually do any of the things that we had hoped for it to do. So we're not going to try that method again to get those types of housing units in the city. But when it came to the city council, I think there was a little more conversation about that issue. And it was when the council made the change from some of those multifamily uses being permitted in the residential zone to becoming conditional. I think that was based on the concern that there are places where they're appropriate and places there aren't. So this is left on the list as we can leave it as is and take that up on a case-by-case basis. That's our current strategy right now. If someone wants to build an apartment, they need a conditional use permit. We'll look at it on a case-by-case basis. Or if people really felt strongly about it, we could revisit it on a global basis and try and decide, do we know up front where we would say yes to these, and can we zone things that way? I think that'd be pretty difficult to do in a community our size, but it's not a solved issue, so it's still on the list as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you. So it does seem like that might be one we could address fairly quickly, I would hope.
Well, if you mean take it off the list because we're not going to do it, we could do that fairly quickly. If you mean actually identify the places where we think that this would be okay, I think that'd be very complex and difficult.
Yeah, and I guess what I am saying is that I feel like, no, there isn't a way for us to, predict the future, because predicting the future is hard to do. So I don't think that we should get into the game of trying to figure out exactly where they should go. I think we should leave it to the market or the people to decide where they want them. And when they say, hey, we'd like to have one, well, we have conditional use permits. So they can say like, hey, we'd like to do it. And then we as representatives of the community can go like, that's not a good idea or not a good place, or it is a great idea, it is a good place. So I feel like we should leave it stand as it is. So are we permitted? I mean, is this our document or does this belong to the city council? Like, can we just take it off of there?
Well, this document just is. It's not some sort of official record other than it was generated by a process that we had our consultants go through. So, there's no need to amend it. It was put on a list and whether you want to work on it or not is entirely up to you. But we're not going to put this list out in front of people and say these are the things we're working on. We'll talk about the things that you're going to pick off of it instead. Okay. And what I'm hearing from you is the utilities is where you want to focus, and I just want to drill down into that to make sure I understand what we're trying to accomplish with that. I think the origin of those comments are we don't have a great electronic map that doesn't have the ones that we have a couple of inaccuracies that you can't just place it on the zoning map and know where things are. But for the most part, we have very accurate maps where our utilities are. So that won't be that hard to accomplish. We just didn't see the need to do it with the last process. When we do accomplish it, there's a few items on here, like number 6, for instance, is trying to say, should we differentiate in actual zones? Should we create a different zone for rural service areas where we're not going to have utilities? Right now, we have different setbacks in different lot areas, but we don't have anything else that's different about it. So I'm not hearing you say you necessarily want to work on that, but we are trying to focus in on that area that is urban and where water and sewer is. You want to then take that map and talk about where you might try to expand water and sewer service, where it might add more housing, and you want to go through some sort of process where we would look at what that might cost and what's the value proposition of it, basically. What would it take, and do we think it's worth it? So we can certainly do that. Sit there one more in here. The future land use map, that's what the FLU map is. We don't have one. A lot of cities do, and it's kind of this idea that a comprehensive plan is the way your community is going to grow. And that's not a paradigm that fits with us very well. We don't grow on a continual basis. We don't add new sewer every year. We don't add new sewer very often at all. And the population's pretty stable. The idea that we're going to have a map that says this is where we want to grow to, we could probably pull that off. But again, it's really going to be more about the other question. what's the value proposition? What's it going to take to put water and sewer in there, and how would it get paid for, and would it be worth it? That's what we'll put together some ideas for you there on how to move forward on a project like that.
Okay. You know, Mike, just so that we're not running over ground that's already been run over, has this not already taken place? I think I can recall Anton speaking to this about, you know, what it costs to bring in sewer, to bring in water, and that really it doesn't make sense unless some entity that is not a private entity, you know, pays for it or somehow, you know, leverages funds to make it happen. Is that not what we've done before?
Well, I appreciate the sentiment, Michael, but I would recommend that we don't make a limit like not running over ground that has been run over before, because we'll not find any ground that has not been run over before multiple times in the community. And things change, so it's a good idea to occasionally revisit a question. The last time we talked about
have changed, right? The setbacks have changed, the density requirements
exactly
have changed, right?
Yeah.
That changes the math dramatically
yeah. But what it doesn't change is the you know, who's going to pay for it question. And what it does do, I think, is it makes it a lot more palatable for a private developer to look at $300,000 or $400,000 of infrastructure and think, I'm going to get 20 units out of that rather than 5. And so I think that's the kind of analysis we'll do.
Okay.
But there were other barriers. You know, it wasn't just the cost of the infrastructure. When, you know, Ben, you're talking about that property on the west side, and that was really Anton's focus too. And we did a study out there that showed an incredible amount of wetlands. And that was kind of the end of our study, because there's really no way we could get permission to fill enough to put roads in and then fill enough for building sites. But, you know, just because that was the case then, it's worth a revisit to that question too, and talk about ways that could potentially be addressed. I don't know if there's any good ones or not, but, you know, that's kind of sitting out there, and everybody looks at that property and thinks, boy, wouldn't it be nice if it could be used. And if it can't, you know, it seems a shame to have it platted out with streets, right of ways, and zoned R1, and then, you know, tantalize everyone with that and then say, I'm sorry, but you'll never be able to build on it. So maybe we need to do something else with it instead, if that's the answer.
All right. Well, thanks for that. So we'll go ahead with that for our next meeting. Then I take it, Mr. Mike?
Well, let's hope so. You already have another public hearing on your next meeting for sure.
Yeah.
I think about this type of a project, and I would say in a non-pandemic year, we could probably pull that off within a year to plan how we're going to do it, go out and get the assistance that we're going to need, and then actually go through the process. And I think that this is a question that it is worth involving the public in a pretty high level when we're talking about, you know, what value do these wetlands have to be undisturbed? Who should pay for the cost of doing the development? What value does the community get for having the development occur? Those seem like pretty good questions to keep the public involved in, and that's tricky to do these days. So, but we've pulled it off before. It just will take a little bit longer, and so if it's not next meeting, maybe the following one. We'll at least try to have some kind of a sketched out idea for you next meeting, but we might not have like, here's what we're going to do.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I believe that we are ready to adjourn. Do I have a move to so do?
I will motion to adjourn.
Excellent.
I'll
Do I have a
second. I'll second that.
All right. Thank you.